You know what really concerns me? When I see people with back pain doing stretches that might actually be making their situation worse. And the frustrating part is they genuinely think they're helping themselves. For example, would you drive your car at top speed if the alignment was off or the frame was crooked? Let me ask you something else. Have you ever done toe touches or pulled your knees to your chest when your back was bothering you? I imagine many of us have been there. Your back starts aching, so naturally you think you need to stretch it out. But here's something that might surprise you. Those common stretches could potentially be part of the issue rather than the solution. When you do those typical back stretches, you might notice something interesting. You bend forward, pull your knees up, do some toe touches, and then you often feel better for a short period, maybe 15 to 20 minutes or so. Okay? So naturally, you think this approach is working and you should do more of it. But what you might be experiencing is something called a stretch reflex. Essentially, your nervous system temporarily reducing the pain signals. It's somewhat like taking a pain reliever. You feel better temporarily, but you're not necessarily addressing the underlying issue. And while you're getting that brief relief, you're potentially placing your spine in positions that could be re-irritating the problem areas. So after that short period of feeling better, the discomfort often returns, sometimes feeling even more intense than before. It's like temporarily soothing an irritation only to find it bothers you again later. You might unknowingly create a pattern where you think the thing that's potentially aggravating you is actually helping you. Instead of focusing on stretches that bend your spine, which by the way we generally want to avoid, we might want to consider movements that help other parts of your body that could be contributing to your back discomfort. Think about it this way. Your back doesn't function in isolation. It's connected to your hips, your core, your entire body. Yet if you go on the rectangle of bad information, what I call the internet, oftentimes the real issue isn't your back at all, but rather everything around it that might not be functioning optimally. Or simply compensatory problems manifesting in a pain pattern away from the pain trigger. Let's talk about what's often called the sitting problem. Many of us sit quite a bit, and all that sitting, especially with less than ideal posture, can create built-up tension. You know that curved position we often find ourselves in after spending time at a computer. That can be really challenging for your back. But here's a simple approach that might help. Always ensure that your hips are above your knees. Years ago, I created a simple solution called the foundation for companies called the Spinery in Europe and Axial Chairs in the US. Well, it's a seat cushion orthotic designed to ensure a robust posture while seated. Works incredibly well. You can also use a forward tilt adjustment on your office chair. That too should do the trick. Additionally, every 20 to 30 minutes or so, consider standing up. Put your hands behind your back and relax for a moment. Then raise your hands over your head and let that tension release. Now put your hands as far back as feels comfortable and take a full deep breath, really expanding your chest and extending gently. Then lower your arms. This simple movement might help reduce some of the stress that builds up from prolonged sitting. The ideal posture, whether sitting or at a standing desk, is a moving posture. Movement is key. Think of it as a reset button for your posture. One of the significant contributors to back discomfort might actually be a deep muscle you may not have heard of. It's called the psoas, and it's a hip muscle that connects directly to your spine. When you sit frequently, this muscle can become tight, and when you have back discomfort, it might get even tighter, creating a challenging cycle. When this muscle is tight, it can pull your pelvis in a way that increases pressure on your lower back. It's like having constant tension affecting your spine from within. The traditional hip stretches that most people do might not effectively address this particular muscle because of its unique anatomy. Here's an approach that might work better. Get into a lunge position, then raise your arms straight up over your head on the same side as your back leg. Now lean your shoulder toward your front leg and drop that shoulder back. You should feel something different. That might be your psoas finally getting some attention. Hold it briefly, then switch sides. Try about 6 gentle cycles per side. Next, we might want to focus on what I call waking up your spine. There's an approach called the cat-camel movement that might help reduce friction in your spine and prepare it to move more comfortably. Get on your hands and knees, with knees under your hips and hands under your shoulders. You might need to spread your knees slightly to free up your hips. Slowly arch your back up like a stretching cat, then let it gently sag down. The important thing to remember is that you're not trying to stretch aggressively. You're just moving your spine through its natural range of motion gently. About 7 to 8 cycles might be sufficient. More isn't necessarily better, and overdoing it could potentially reduce the benefits. Finally, we might want to work on what I call hip awakening. When your hips are stiff and weak, which they often are if you sit frequently, Your spine might end up doing more work than it should. Every time you move, bend, or twist, your back might be compensating for what your hips should be handling. One approach is something called hip airplanes. Stand on one leg, engage your core, and really connect with the floor through your planted foot. Put your hands on your hips and lean forward over your planted leg while extending your back leg straight behind you. The key part is to rotate your hips inward toward your planted leg, then away from it. Think about moving your midsection toward your leg, then away to the side. The movement should come from your hips rather than just twisting your upper body. You might start with 3 sets of 3 controlled movements. You can hold on to something for balance initially. Eventually, you might work toward doing this with your arms spread out for balance. These movements are straightforward, but straightforward doesn't mean they're unimportant or that they'll be easy for everyone. The real insight here is understanding that back discomfort often isn't just about your back. It's about how your whole body moves and functions together. When you start approaching it from that perspective, rather than just trying to stretch away the discomfort, that's when meaningful improvement might begin. Consider trying these movements daily, or even multiple times a day if you sit frequently. If they seem to help with your discomfort, that might be a sign you're on a helpful path. Remember, back issues are very individual. There isn't a universal solution that works for everyone. These approaches help many people, but if they don't work for you, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It might just mean you need a different approach. Key insight is to consider stopping activities that might be making things more challenging, or what I call the triggers, and start incorporating things that help your body function more naturally. Back discomfort doesn't have to be something you just live with indefinitely. Sometimes the solution isn't about adding more therapies, treatments, exercise regimes, and so forth. It might be about stopping the patterns that are keeping you in a cycle of discomfort.